Hello, symposiast. I'm Dr. Angela Puca, Religious Studies PhD and University lecturer, and this is your online resource for the academic study of magic, esotericism, paganism, shamanism, and all things occult. As you know, part of my project here on Angela Symposium is to bridge the gap between academia and the community of practitioners. So that's why I often also invite practitioners so that you can have both views. And today, our special guest is Poke Runyon. Um, Thank you so much for being here on Angela Symposium, Poke, and also Max is here with us as well. How are you today?
Well, as I told you, I've got the
Not too
flu.
well.
Yeah, but I think if everybody can hear me, we get through it, and we'll have we'll have a lot of fun talking about what we know about and what we do.
I'm just here to run support, grab him coffee and anything he needs. He's as he says, he's a bit under the weather today,
Yeah,
bit of a fever. So I'm just here as window dressing and a coffee runner.
Max is the deputy grand master of the OTA, and I'm 90 years old, and so it would I'm trying to make it to 120, but I don't know whether if I make it to 120, it'll be with Max's help. I can tell you that, and he'll take over when I'm gone.
I'm also a therapist and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
I help him. So
That's very nice of you. So, Paul, can you tell us something about your story in esotericism? How did you start? What traditions you've been initiated into, and what led you to found the Ordo Templi Astartes or OTA?
Okay, I've told this story a lot of times. Anyway, it's about it's about my gallstones. I've got them. I've got my gallstones are glued together and shellacked, and I keep them in a little velvet bag in a rectangular chest. And what happened to me was I was in Hollywood working as a screenwriter, and I came down with what I thought was an ulcer, and I had getting these pains in around my liver area, and I kept I thought oh, I'm not gonna have an ulcer. Ulcers are psychosomatic. That's what I thought at that time, and so I'll master self hypnosis, and I will hypnotize this ulcer away. And so I I went into self hypnosis, and when I went into self hypnosis, I I went into mysticism and magic. It's, and so I got very deep in self hypnosis, but I couldn't cure the ulcer. It just kept coming back, and so finally, my doctors finally realized that it wasn't an ulcer. It was an atrophied gallbladder. My gallbladder had turned to solid rock. My mother, bless her heart, cooked everything in bacon grease, and so I grew up. I grew up with just absorbing bacon grease over and over and over again until finally the bacon grease literally fused my liver, my gallbladder together into this lump that was almost the size of a fist. So they had to cut me open and chop my and get my gallbladder out with a chisel. So that's why I I kept the I kept the gallbladder, and glued it back together, and shellacked it, and I keep it to remember what happened. But anyway, when I was while I was having this problem, I became obsessed with the idea of finding out how to call spirits to visible appearance and talk to them. I was studying magic and Tibetan tantra and voodoo too. I'll admit that I studied voodoo too, and you see Zool there behind me. That's a prop demon, and we use it for Halloween, and most people think that's the way these demons appear when they appear. And I have a colleague who actually conjured to over and over and over again. He got in a warehouse in Fort Lauderdale and in the middle of summer, and he just conjured until he got a vision, and the vision he got was just about exactly like what we're showing there in the background, a gargoyle. And but I didn't think I had come to the conclusion, and it turned out to be correct, that these spirits, especially of the Goetia, the lesser key of Solomon, that they are actually old pagan gods and goddesses that have been transformed by the rabbis, the priests, the imams, into demons. And in the Kabbalah, they created a thing called a Qliphoth, where they put them, and fortunately, and the Goetia is a Christian grimoire, and the Lesser Key of Solomon, and so we the Christian Hermetic Gnostics, we put them in. We put these spirits in the Tartarus, in the classic pagan Tartarus, and that's a much nicer place actually than the Jewish Qliphoth. But so what they are is they're the old pagan goddesses that Solomon worshipped, because Solomon wasn't a Hebrew. He was actually a Canaanite himself, a Phoenician, and so I struggled and struggled to find out how to bring these spirits up, and I finally realized and found out from study and work that you use your own reflection in a dark mirror, a speculum, and in dim light, and you stare at your own reflection and you conjure, and your face will fade out, and then what comes back is a vision of the god or the goddess, or the so-called, well, we use the Greek term daemon, and that and so having found that out, when I came out of this thing and had an operation to get my gallbladder out, and then I wondered, after I got my gallbladder out, I wondered, will this still work? Can I still do this? And sure enough, I could. And so I thought, my gosh, I've got something here, and this, I really ought to found an order and teach it to people, and then I can use that to find out more about it, and we'll find out more and develop it. And so I got together some friends of mine, and we started the Ordo Templi Astartes, and that was in 1969, And so we've been operating ever since. We're the oldest, longest running ceremonial magic lodge in the United States. And as far as I know, I don't think that extends to England, but I will tell you this. A lot of our knowledge and help came from British magicians that we contacted. Bill Gray, William G. Gray, Basil Wilby, Gareth Knight, and so we've had a lot of contact, and in the Golden Dawn, which of course is as all your watchers and listeners and viewers know is the great granddaddy of all the ceremonial magic orders, and Robert A. Gilbert, who is my contact, and I eventually mastered the Golden Dawn system with the help of Israel Lagarde and our own Golden Dawn expert, David G. Kennedy, and so that's how we got started. And we got we developed seasonal ceremonies for the Phoenician Canaanite religion of Solomon, and we wrote these seasonal ceremonies. And I used the British Chester mystery plays. I used them as a model for our seasonal ceremonies, and they're very much kind of like I don't know. Do you have Renaissance fairs over there? I think you do.
What? Sorry.
Renaissance fairs.
Renaissance fairs. We have them in Italy. I'm not sure if there are any in the UK.
Well,
there might be.
Seasonal ceremonies are they're the same style as the Chester mystery plays, and so we based them on the Rosh and Ra tablets that were discovered back in Syria back in the 1930s, and they were translated and published in the 1960s. And so we have the whole cycle of seasonal ceremonies, the solstices and the equinoxes. And we finally developed a Halloween. We developed a Halloween ceremony, which has become our most popular one, and that is where the Lord of Death, Moot, the Grim Reaper, he serves everybody a drink, and this is sort of the dark. Well, this is the flip side of Baal serving everyone the elixir from the Holy Grail in our seasonals, in our spring and summer seasonals. And Moat, the Grim Reaper, serves the wine of remembrance, and then asks all the celebrants, yeah, what say you to honor the dead? And all of our celebrants can then honor their loved ones who have passed away, their parents and whatever. So and then usually one of our senior members will channel one of our avatars, like King Solomon or Enoch or yeah, our resident high priestess. This last moat mass that we did, she channeled the Witch of Endor, and that was really quite a thing. I'd like to mention, though, that see our demon behind us. Max, can you shine that flashlight on Zool?
Sure.
Right up to his face. Yeah. This is what most people think you get if you summon a demon, a spirit, and this is very, very close to what my colleague down in Florida, what he got in that warehouse in Fort Lauderdale on summertime, and he and his rock and roll band, they went in there and they conjured and drove themselves to exhaustion, and they finally brought something like this to visible appearance. Okay, that's fine if you want to go all that trouble, but it's so much easier, and you get so much nicer result if you use the dark mirror and bring up one of the pagan gods or goddesses, and then converse with them, and they'll help you, and they'll help you, and so this, and as I say, this one of the reasons why they got something that looked like Zool there was because the fellow was my colleague, and I'm not going to mention his name. Everybody who's familiar with this will know who he is, but he was Jewish, and the Jews created a dustbin, a sort of a garbage dump for the where they put the pagan gods and goddesses they didn't like, yeah, and they put them in there and gave them ferocious names like Baal and Astarte and Asmodeus, and all these various names. Asmodeus was not a Phoenician god. He was more Persian. But anyway, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. And then we've gone on to the Crater Rapoa, and I'm going to let Max talk about that. But I decided that we needed an initiatory system, and we needed an initiatory script to initiate people into our order. And I read through the whole Golden Dawn, and of course I studied with Rigardi, and when Rigardi was still alive. And the thing was that the Golden Dawn doesn't practice thaumaturgy. They are theurgy. They do theurgy, not thaumaturgy. And there's quite a difference. Theurgy does not use crystal balls, and it does not use dark mirrors, and it does not use hypnosis. It just does beautiful ritual, and that's fine, and that's wonderful, very valuable. But thaumaturgy is wonder working. That's what we do, and calling them the spirits. And so I read through the Golden Dawn, and I said I don't want to use one of their initiations when we started the order. So what I did was I found a French system called by Paul Christian in 1873, The History and Practice of Magic, and in there was a script called The Initiation into the Pyramids. And this was something that seemed to be used in Alexandria early in the Common Era. And so we based our initiation on Paul Christian's Mysteries of the Pyramids. And then I found out a few years later, when I was studying with Manly Hall, I found out a few years later that this initiation of the pyramids was based on a German extrapolation from Alexandria during the Ptolemaic period, called the Crater-Rapoa, which was a 7 degree system. And Manly Hall had written a book about it called Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians. Well, Manly and myself and Max and we're Freemasons, and so were the Golden Daughters, and so we adopted the Crater-Rapoa, and then we worked toward fleshing out all 7 degrees. Now we've changed them a lot and modernized it, and we brought everything subsequent to the Crater-Rapoa into them. So our Crater-Rapoa Reformatus, the Reformed Crater-Rapoa, is a whole system which includes chivalry from the Parzival, King Arthur, and it includes that symbolism, and it includes the original Alexandrian symbolism, and the alchemical symbolism, and it's a full system, and we've modernized it and fleshed it out with a great deal of material, and but I'm gonna let Max.
How did you combine different things? Because you created your own tradition, right? So it's not, your order is not part of Telema or part of other traditions. You created your own tradition. So how did you combine all the strands to create that tradition?
Well, actually, it was a lot of work, and of course, I built most of the equipment that we use. I spent a year building props and sets and props for Runyon Brothers Circus. So, excuse me. Anyway, I'll let Max talk about the Crater-Rapoa, and then I'll
Max, come on.
Alrighty, I'll slide back into the conversation here. Monitoring the comments too. Shout out to you guys. Love you all.
There are some nice poetic comments.
Yes, very nice ones. You've got some great fans in the comments there, Poke. Poke had decided to employ the Crater-Rapoa. The Crater-Rapoa, are you familiar with it, Dr. Puka?
No.
No. But not a lot of people are. They should be, though.
Okay. Educate us.
No, what I mean to say is that the Crater-Rapoa is as he says, a 7 degree system of ostensibly Egyptian initiation. It was compiled and first published in 1770 by a kind of a paramasonic order in Prussia under the direct auspice and founding of Frederick the Great of Prussia. He got together with the Grand Master of this order, and they decided they really wanted to have some kind of elite college of like some kind of elite educational college. They were disappointed with the perfunctional nature of masonry at that time, and they wanted something that was a little bit more enlightenment based, working towards education, and they derived a great deal of inspiration from the idea that was common in those times in some of those books like The History of Heaven or The Life of Sethos. These are some books that from that era that talk about an Egyptian sacerdotal college that was supposed to be an ancient Egyptian college that trained the priests and brought its members to some form of secret mystical enlightenment. And thank you. Generally speaking, when they put this thing together, as you can imagine, Champollion only finished his translation of the hieroglyphs like in 1820 something, I think. So this is 50 years before that. And because of that, and a lot of the Enlightenment elements within the Krater-Rapporteur rite, it's a fairly short document, actually. It's been considered to be an Enlightenment forgery or an Enlightenment faux emulation. Nothing really much to think about. So no one really knows about it. That's what I mean when I say that almost no one is familiar with the Krater-Rapporteur, because it's considered just one of those things that was invented by a bunch of continental masons to try and emulate. Same as Cagliostro's Egyptian rite or some of the other
Cagliostro's
right.
Yeah.
It's in the same vein. In fact, it was probably overshadowed by Cagliostro because, well, he had a great charisma, and the guys who worked on the Krater-Rapporteur, not as much, at least not as much as him, and that was somewhat important as it was quite a bit contemporary. But the thing about the Krater-Rapporteur that we've been researching and finding out is when I first picked up the Krater-Rapporteur to try and work out to help Poke. I wanted to, because we're actually working on a book together on the subject, and I wanted to do due diligence and compare it to the genuine article. I thought, well, let's compare it to the closest thing we have to an ancient Egyptian initiation. I mean, that would be the best way to see whether it's got any validity whatsoever for a document compiled by people who only had classical sources and the Bible to go from to create this 7-degree system. But thanks to the work of Egyptologists, demonists like Dr. Richard Jasnow and Zalzish and Dr. Joachim Quack, who are just incredible Egyptologists, except for, well, Dr. Zalzish has, of course, passed away now, but their work, Dr. Zalzish and Jasnow produced a book that you probably are familiar with, and that is the Demotic Book of Thoth, which is an initiation into the ancient Egyptian House of Life, painstakingly reconstructed from fragments. When I looked into this, the similarities between the Demotic Book of Thoth, the actual papyrus, like the actual initiation of the House of Life, and the Krater-Rapporteur was startling.
What do you mean by similarities?
I mean that the first similarity is that they were attempting to recreate this sacerdotal college, which is the House of Life, the ancient Egyptian House of Life, the scribal and priestly training school and center of ritual magic in the Egyptian world, definitely during the Greco-Roman era, but also going back probably as far as the New Kingdom. So there's references to it. There's bricks of the House of Life in Amarna in Egypt from the Akhenaten period. And in fact, one of the epithets for the head of the House of Life is sort of, the Great of Five was the title of that. The architect of King Khufu's pyramid was was called the Great of Five of the House of Thoth, which is probably a slightly different institution, but it's probably an iteration of the same kind of thing. So the legend of this sacerdotal college was manifested in the House of Life in that period of time, where they would train what was known in Greek as hierogrammateia, or worshipful scribes. Yeah, under that title, you'll find a lot more alumni of that institution, because almost everything was remembered, obviously, in Greek terms.
That's make sure you make clear that this House of Life extended way beyond the birth of Christ.
Oh yeah,
it extended all the way up into just about the end of what we call the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this was the magic of Merlin and all the early European wizards and witches. In fact,
I know you're familiar with something called the Solomance, and that is something that is remarkably similar in reputation and in substance to what the House of Life was demonized into, essentially.
Where's our Solomon's magic book?
Here it is, sir.
Good. Now, this is what we are really going to do something with this. And this,
straighten that for you.
This is the Ostia medallion, and this is a bronze medallion from the 2nd century, the Common Era, and it's got Hecate, 3-phase Hecate on one side, and it's got Solomon stirring a cauldron on the obverse, and it is the connection between ceremonial magic, Solomonic magic especially, and witchcraft. And this is 200 AD.
Yeah, though actually one of the last known priests of the House of Life was Zosimos of Panopolis, who is, of course, the renowned founder of alchemy, the subject in general, the first identifiable true alchemist. And it was in communicating metallurgical temple secrets through Christian and Jewish metaphors that he was able to communicate alchemy to Theosobia, his female colleague, and her little metallurgical cult. But to connect the two between the House of Life and the Krater Rappoa is, it may be that the authors of the Krater Rappoa, the compilers of the Krater Rappoa in the 1700s, did build this 7-degree system from classical sources, almost every single possible reference, more than what is actually, there's footnotes in there that look like they're a bibliography, but they would have had to have used so much more than those little footnotes to rebuild this thing. And the accuracy, from what I can tell, they got the, although the names of the degrees are in Greek, obviously, it's supposed to be from some kind of Greek fragment, papyrus. It's not a Greek fragment document or something like that. But regardless of that, they got correct the idea of the Pastophorus as being the first grade, which was the case. What was in Egyptian called Iriya. And then they had Neochorus, which is a Wab priest. They also then introduced the Isaic and Assyrian mysteries under correct titles. Melanophoron is actually the title of an Isaic priest, priest of Isis. And Christophorus, bearer of the sacred chest of mysteries, Christos, was the 4th grade. And that's basically introducing Sem priests as one of the titles they use, and that basically means junior mortuary priest or mortuary priest in Latin. And then it goes through to the metallurgical and alchemical mysteries, to the astronomical mysteries, and then finally to the grade of prophet. These are all sequentially accurate to the Egyptian educational system, sacerdotal educational system. That's not, to my knowledge, spelled out in any classical sources to that degree of accuracy. Most people who've treated this believe they actually just grabbed words from magazines and books. But yeah, sorry, you're going to ask a question?
No, I was just about to say that, we'll ask a question about the importance of historicity in your tradition. But because I noticed that when I ran the intro to the video, usually I also have a disclaimer that, especially when I interview practitioners, that unless openly stated, I don't, back on any of the information that are stated by my interviewees, because obviously I'm not here to challenge people. I'm here to present to my audience what specific practitioners, in this case you guys, believe, and what is part of your tradition. I was just having Magus lecture with my patrons about, and we had a whole discussion about the fact that it's very common for esoteric traditions and practices to claim historicity to validate their practices. And one point of interest for me as an anthropologist of religion and a religious studies scholar is, why is it important? Why does it matter whether there is a historical link to ancient Egypt? And what if that there isn't? What if, from a historical point of view, if we were to analyze the connections between the two, there isn't a direct link, but it is more a reconstruction that happened in the 18th century? So would that invalidate your practice, or would it still be able to stand on its own practice?
Our practices and our seasonal rituals are based on the rites of Canaan, the Rosh Hashanah Ugaritic text, a reconstruction or a modern version of that. It's the initiatory rites that we've taken from the Krater Rapol, that we took a dive into, because it's supposed to be for Egyptian priests, the initiatory system. That's why my research has been directed towards Egypt rather than Canaan. Although it's important that those systems do mix a lot. They, as neighbors, those two religious beliefs were constantly intermingling.
And let me bring up my favorite aspect of this, and that is our favorite ancient Egyptian queen, Cleopatra. Cleopatra was involved in a revival. She was fascinated by the goddess Isis and imagined herself as a reincarnation of the goddess Isis. And of course, she also wanted Anthony, her husband. She wanted him to be the personification of Osiris. And so she started a revival of New Kingdom Egyptian religion. Now, as most people understand, I'm sure you know, during the Ptolemaic period, the Isis and Osiris legend was about the only survival of the Egyptian religion, but the Ptolemaic dynasty wanted to fuse ancient Egyptian religion and Greek religion together, and they created synthetic composite gods. And the one that is most logical is the one that is most prominent at that period was Serapis. And Serapis was a combination Isis Osiris and the sacred bull Apis, and there's a whole kind of a theological culture that was transformed. And Alexandria during that time was the library was in conflict with the House of Life, and the House of Life and the library both existed at the same time, but they didn't get along because Serapis was, the House of Life was really trying to preserve New Kingdom Egyptian religion, and so this mixture of European and also Palestinian at that time, that the mixture of the two systems was really not compatible. What most people don't realize, most beginning magic students think that the Kabbalah will match up perfectly with ancient Egyptian pyramid texts and hieroglyphics and everything. It doesn't. Egypt has 3 seasons instead of 4. Europe and Palestine have 4 seasons, and our Kabbalah, even the Hebrew Kabbalah, not just the Hermetic Kabbalah, but the Hebrew Kabbalah is a 4-season, 4-quadrant system, and that's not what the ancient Egyptian system was. So these Ptolemaic changes and these Ptolemaic configurations, they have to be taken into consideration whenever you work on synthesizing anything. And yet, all our tradition, all of it, comes out of Alexandria during the early Common Era. That's where Gnosticism comes from. That's where Kabbalah comes from. That's where Ptolemaic astrology comes from. And this is the source. What we're digging into here, and what Max has been explaining, this House of Life, existing all the way up into our Dark Ages. This is the origin of all of our esoteric tradition, and straightening out the problems or solving what we call force fits. You want to get this system to fit in this. It's like people try to do with a Nokian. God, the force fits in a Nokian are incredible, and you know what I mean by force fits, Angela? Yeah, force fitting different Kabbalistic systems together, trying to make them interchange. There's so many people think they can take a Nokian and make it fit with the Goetia, and that was something Crowley tried to do, and Tom Rudd tried to do, and these people, they try to fit these, and all this problem goes back to Alexandria during the early Common Era.
To answer your question, actually, on whether it's important, not terribly. I mean, ultimately, we were utilizing the Crater-Rapport system long before we kind of discovered this resonance this genuine resonance with ancient Egyptian. It's you could say it may well have been reconstructed from fragments in classical sources. The work that we've been doing, however, I feel the one takeaway would be that they did a much, much, much better job than they've been given credit for. Whether there's a direct link or not, that the Krater Rapport is more genuine than has been given credit, regardless of the affectations of very obvious affectations of Enlightenment insertions. It's a more valuable document than I think has been given credit for. And yeah, that would be my takeaway.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I might do an episode on the Krater Rapport. Seems
Feel free
interesting to see.
to email me, and I'll send you. I did a whole lecture on it at a lodge to connect. It was a very unfortunately long lecture. It was like 3 hours. It's my fault. But
I'm sure they appreciate it.
I'm sure it's a very fascinating document. And it is not I can understand why people might think at first glance why it is just an enlightenment, but behind almost every single symbol that they use, every single sentence is like a grain of genuineness, even behind some of the most strange symbols that seem to be enlightenment affectations. And so I would say it deserves a much more scrutiny, a much closer scrutiny, and much more praise than it has received in the past 300 years.
Be interesting to see if there's any scholarship on that, as in academic scholarship.
I myself am wanting to actually publish some papers on it myself, but I'm no scholar, so it would be interesting to see what others have said. So far, what I can tell, most people consider it to just be an Enlightenment concoction. But they also haven't taken the approach that we have taken, probably because I don't think it's a very scholarly approach, and that is to compare it to the genuine article blow by blow, to see those synchronicities and resonances. So anyway.
We have also some questions from our audience. RLB is asking, how was the Master Mandala developed? And can you speak to the relationship between the Goetic spirits and the angels of, I can't say that, Shem HaPoresh?
I'm more than happy to do that. And the Master Mandala was developed by comparing Wirius is that's what the list published, in Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft, and comparing that and the Testament of Solomon and other memoirs relating to it. I might mention that there is an Arabic version of the Testament of Solomon called the Medicine of Solomon, which nobody hardly knows anything about. A colleague of mine, a Muslim colleague of mine, published it, and then somebody and in the Testament of Solomon, the spirits afflict people with certain diseases and certain problems and what have you, and they have an angel that will champion them. Now, this is kind of the concept of the Shem HaPoresh is kind of brought forward in the Testament of Solomon, and that's right in the early Common Era, about 207 or something like that. Now, what the Shimon Farash is it goes around the circle, and we have it in the Master Mandala. We have the Shimon Farash circling around, being opposite. It's an angel who is opposite every one of the 72 goetic spirits. Now, this angel is sort of he kind of safeties. He safeties the goetic spirits. And what I will say right now, that probably a lot of people don't know, and if you're going to go into goetic practice, you really should know it, and that is that the angels of the Shimon Farash, if you really want to know what they can do, then get Franz Barden's second book. The second book, The Practice of Magical Evocation. Because what Barden did is he put all of the 72 angels of the Shimon Farash, he made them the spirits of Mercury. So when you look up the spirits of Mercury in Barden's second volume, that's Practice of Magical Evocation, he has their descriptions. And these angels should be worked with the Goetia, and they really safety the Goetia. I know one of my colleagues, a colleague, not a member of the OTA, but he jumped on me in common discourse and commentary, and he said the Goetia, the Shimon Farash has nothing to do with the Goetia. And I said, oh yes it does, because if you look at Thomas Rudd's 1700s, Thomas Rudd's Goetia, he has the Shimon Farash all opposite all of his spirits. And this commentator said, well, but the Shimon Farash derives from a verse in the Bible. It's from Moses holding up his staff, and behold his mighty hand. Remember Charlton Heston? The verse describing that in the Bible, that's where the Shimon Farash is derived from. Yeah. But way back 300 years ago, Tom Rudd and all of his Lemegeton magicians, they were all using it. And so I told this guy, I said, we stole it fair and square. He was a kind of a rabbinical student, and I said, we, Hermetic Kabbalah, we stole it fair and square. And that was 300 years ago. And so it's valid. And the first Shimon Farash angel is the first angel of the Goetia, the first fallen angel of the Goetia is Baal, that's first fallen spirit, which is the name of Baal. of the concert of Astarte. And now, Baal's counterpart, semi-emperor angel, is Vahuya. Now I invoked Vahuya. Now you don't do these semi-emperor angels in the dark mirror. You don't do that. You invoke them in a crystal, and because they're angels. So I invoked Vahuya, Baal's or Baal's counterpart. And I said, and I asked, I said, what is the real difference between you semi-emperor angels, and the Goetic spirits? And Vahuya said, we are the power. They are the art. And that, I believe, is really, really profound. Because the angels are the power, and the Goetic spirits all teach something. Those daemons are pagan gods, pagan gods. They teach something. They teach you things. Asmodeus got me through statistics in graduate school. Asmodeus teaches mathematics, and I'm terrible at mathematics, and so before I took the midterm in my statistics class, and Angela, you can't get a master. You can't get a master's or a PhD unless you got statistics. You have to have it. You did it. I did it, but I was terrified. So I called up Asmodeus, and I asked him to help me get through the midterm.
When
and
you sorry,
I aced the midterm, and then, but when it came to the final, I called up Asmodeus again to help me get through the final, and he said he would. I took the final, and the final was nothing like what I had studied for. It was nothing. It was totally. It was nothing like what I had studied for, and God Almighty. The professor admitted a mistake. He said, I gave you the wrong test. And so I passed the course with an A and kept up my graduate school average and passed the course with an A. And because he had given us the wrong test. And so he based everything, all our grades on the midterms. And so when they say, when Vahuya says we are the power, yeah, that's the power of God. And that's what angels are. They are the power of God. They're God's messengers. And then the demons say, and they say, we are the art. And they are. Because you go through the Goetia and you see each one of those angels, those fallen angels, so-called demons, they teach a subject, mathematics, like Asmodeus does, music. There's one that teaches music. And I've got a good story about the music aspect of it too. which I'll tell you.
How are we doing for time, by the way, Angela?
It's okay. I mean, I don't want to take too much of your time, especially knowing that Poke is not doing well. But
It's all right. Once Poke's on a roll, it's good.
Yeah, but we can say just a little bit longer if you want.
Of course. Sorry, Angela. I just wanted to talk about the documentary, of course, the series that.
Okay, can we do it just in a second, because we have another question from the audience, and then we will talk about the documentary.
Do I have time to tell my story about the
the music?
The music.
Yes, please do.
Okay, go on with that first, then.
And this is in this. By the way, this account is in our book, the Book of Solomon's Magic, 2nd edition, which we showed you. Anyway, I had a guy in France, because I have people from all over the world calling me and asking me about spirits that they're in contact with or things that they've had. So this fellow in France, he emails me and gets in a conversation with me, and he says, when I was a child, when I was a kid, he said, I summoned a goetic spirit just for fun, and now the spirit is coming back and haunting me, and I'm going, and I'm in, and he says, I've got a psychiatrist and who's treated me for it, and I said, well, first off, what was the result of your first? I got him to describe his first contact with the spirit, and I want to know the spirit's name. Well, he couldn't remember the spirit's name, but he said the spirit taught music, and he said that he had been wanting to play an instrument and wanting to write poetry when he was a kid, and his parents wouldn't let him, and they wanted him to they wanted him to go into some engineering trade or something like that, and I found the demon or the spirit in the Goetia that he had summoned. And so I told him, I said, here's what's happened. You played around with the spirit because you wanted support with your music and your poetry and whatever. And the spirit granted your wish. And now you've turned your back on your music and you're following your parents' way, and you're into some materialistic discipline, and so what you have to do is, your spirit is mad at you, and that's why he's come back. He said, you didn't take my advice. You called me and you asked me to help you, and then you turned your back on me. That's why he's haunting you, and your desire, because your spirit is part of you, and he lives in you, and you summoned him because you wanted help with your music. Now you have to, no matter what you're doing, you better make room for your hobby, and so you can play your guitar or whatever you want to do. You got to learn to follow your dream, and make way for your dream, make room for your dream, and make room for your spirit, because he is your familiar, and he's trying to help you. He's not haunting you. And I said, and I not only told him this, but I gave him advice on how to call the spirit up and how to get this straightened out. And I told all this the whole thing to his psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, he said that the psychiatrist was Jungian. And I said, well, if your psychiatrist is Jungian, he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and you're going to get it done. And I said, and I want to know what you guys, I want to know the results, and tell me the result of what you're doing, of how you do it, because I want to. And I never heard from him again, or either of them, but I think he did. I think he did what I told him, because he was very enthusiastic about doing that. And I think that's a good use of, yeah. I won't call it, I included that in the exorcism part of the book. That's not really an exorcism, but it's a kind of an exorcism, when you instead of throwing the spirit out, get along with the spirit,
How do spirits and demons appear when you summon them? Do they appear into physical existence, or do you have any other sign of their presence?
In the crystal with angels don't have to. They can appear visually, but they don't have to. Angels appear like a light show. As Tom Rudd describes it, they're a beautiful hieroglyphical show with multicolored, a multicolored aura around the ball, and then knowings in your mind, and then they talk to you. And channeling an angel. When we get around the armadillo and we're all locked on the armadillo with Traticom yoga stare on the crystal, and when the aura shows up around the ball, then I can start asking around the altar. I can start asking, Frater Balthazar, does the angel speak through you? And then Max will just start speaking. His voice will just automatically start speaking, and the angel will have his voice. And but it doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to see an anthropomorphic image of the angel. He can if that's the way he sees it. But it's the aura. And don't take my word for it. It's Tom Rudd, Angel Magic, and it's Tom Rudd, 300 years old book, and that's the way it's described. That's the way the channeling works. Now with the dark mirror, your face blacks out, and then it comes back when the visual purple in your eyes refills. Because when you stare at the mirror with the Traticom yoga stare, you stare at the mirror, and in the candle with the evocation candles, and then your face. What happens is the visual purple in your rod and cone cells in your eyes, it depletes. It depletes, and you black out, and you're conjuring this particular spirit. And then, as the visual purple refills in the rod and cone cells in the retina, then the other image comes in. That is known as the Troxler effect. Why? Because some scientist named Troxler did it, and magicians have been doing it for hundreds of years, and children have been doing it for hundreds of years. Children go in the bathroom for Halloween and with a candle, when they go in the bathroom, and turn the light out and hold the candles, and see their face fade out, and then Bloody Mary comes back in, and they're chanting Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. They've been doing this probably for the past couple hundred years, just about as long as the magicians have been doing it. Anyway, that's how it's done.
Thank you. We also have another question from Lady Calamity. Do you think we are enjoying a re-enchantment of the world with the pagan goddesses, gods?
Re-enchantment of the world.
I celebrate this possibility, or is their power constant?
Well, yes, absolutely, and that's what we want to do. We want to enchant the whole world, and the real sad thing about witchcraft in America is we have a battle between goddesses and witchcraft in America. There's those that worship Diana, and then there's those that worship Hecate and Selene, and like my old OTA member and colleague and one of the founders of American Witchcraft, Joe Wilson, he said at one of the pagan council meetings, he said, "When did you people forget that witchcraft was a fertility religion?" And that's a problem we have, and we'd very much like to overcome that. We're kind of Valentinian Christian Gnostics. We believe Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and we're all for having families. And Freder Balthazar just had his first child, and I still haven't gotten a cigar from him. But with my emphysema or my COPD, I can't be smoking cigars anyway. But congratulations for Freder Balthazar and his newborn, and his wife is Sorora Morgana, and by the way, very honored because they're both 7th degree, and so little Amelia she won't get to be
in good time.
In good time. In good time, she'll be a pastor for us.
I really like the question that they asked about. What was the exactness of the question again? It was about a re-enchanting of pagan gods. Yes, I think what's fascinating. I sometimes think of the difference between, you could say, pagan. As I say, morality. I think it's more about pagan. The concept of opposites, in that paganism is obviously more ancient than monotheism, obviously, and almost all goddesses grow from the reflection of humanity's relationship with its environment and its climate. Pagan gods reflect a much earlier pre-agricultural stage of humanity and going into agricultural age, but definitely pre-city, like pre-metropolitan age. And generally speaking, you'll see that the polarity, it tends to be order versus chaos. whereas a monotheistic worldview tends to be good versus evil. And so, for instance, like the Egyptian god Set is definitely a bastard, definitely an evil god, but he's still a god of order. But he's like, and so you would say that as an example of how he would be a god that's useful in the pagan tradition, but completely demonized. I mean, all other gods are obviously demonized in the monotheistic traditions around the world, but regardless, we can see that the relationship with human beings and their environment gives birth to a natural tendency towards certain religious philosophies. And I think that in the modern age, we yearn for that connection to nature, that connection to the natural world, which is represented by the ancient pagan deities. They represent a type of personal engagement and mythologization of the environment, of the natural world in many respects. Because once you start getting into the cities, when metropolitan areas like Alexandria or Rome start, and you get Gnostic philosophies created where they see the world as being corrupted, evil, and dark, this very much seems to be a reflection of that lived experience of being in a city and seeing the inequality that naturally grows from existing in an urban environment of extreme poverty next to extreme wealth. And then you have people wondering, why not me? Why not me? And it grows philosophies of, well, because the world is painful, suffering, and terrible and unfair, but in the next life I will be rewarded. But you'll see in more rural areas in the ancient world, and in fact, all through the Middle Ages, I mean, pagan traditions in rural Europe were difficult to stamp out by the church. They tended not to. And it's because when you have that natural connection with the environment, you want to have a anthropomorphic relationship with that environment, which is why it's so important to celebrate the solstices, the equinoxes, the changing of the seasons, why it's so important in our tradition, in the witchcraft traditions, to have that, to be a part of the cycle of the year and a part of the cycle of nature, to really feel like your soul is entwined with the world's soul.
Well, actually, fertility. This is one of the prerequisites for sex magic, is the whole fertility principle, because sex magic is the creation of a magical child instead of a physical child, and that is that's what actually gives the human being. This is why the human being is really more powerful spiritually than the angels. And this is why they say the angels are jealous of us. And this is why supposedly the Samyaza and all his fallen angels, why they came down. And that's what created the Lucifer legend and all of that. And because a sex act, if it is done for a purpose, either creating a real child, and that's the natural child, or a magical child that you program to accomplish something for you, and that's the spirit. That's the formula for it. And I'd like to say this: Hermetic philosophy and Hermetic magic, which includes astrology and alchemy and ceremonial magic and all of the Hermetic arts. Hermetic magic is a mixture of Gnosticism, which is, as Max just described, essentially negative. Gnosticism, even Christian Gnosticism, which is more hermetic. Christian Gnosticism, Valentinian Gnosticism is more hermetic than negative Gnostic and negative, but it's still the idea that of the Christ, but Neoplatonism, that philosophy, and that's the philosophy of creative emanations, and Kabbalah cannot exist without Neoplatonism. That's the motive power. That's the operative power of Kabbalah, is Neoplatonism. Emanations down the tree of life, down the lightning flash. That's Neoplatonism. And that's what makes Hermetic philosophy positive rather than negative. And Hermetic philosophy is really it's Gardnerian witchcraft derived from Solomonic ceremonial magic, and it is Hermetic. And one of my very dear friends, Edward Sitch, who's one of the Americans that brought Gardnerian witchcraft over from the United Kingdom to the United States back in the 1960s. Ed Sitch, he was romantic, and he was Hermetic, and he went through the whole first volume of Barden, Initiation into Hermetics, and he was a member of the OTA, and worked with me on many times. And when he passed away, just earlier this year, he passed away. I read him Robert Graves' instructions to the Orphic Adept over the phone as he was passing away. And I very, very much want, and I think Max agrees with me, I want to get Hermetic magic and Gardnerian witchcraft back together. I really do. And I want to get the fertility back into witchcraft, like Joe Wilson wanted to do. And Joe Wilson, by the way, was another American Air Force man who brought 1734 witchcraft. That's Roy Bowers, Robert Cochrane's witchcraft over to the United States. Mm-hmm. And he was also a member of the OTA. Mm-hmm. And we really want to get witchcraft and magic back together. And that's our goal.
Good. Before we wrap up, Max, do you want to talk about the docuseries?
Certainly.
Is it the show?
So we just this year, actually, the filming on the docuseries started back in 2001. There was and that's when those first shots were kind of taken, but it ramped up this year, and the production really started in around about February when it ramped up this year. This whole year we've been producing this a 4-part series called American Magic. It is currently airing. It is on Apple TV. People can find it on Apple TV. American Magic. That's with a CK. American Magic CK. And they can also find it on YouTube. as well. It's on Google and YouTube, and it explores. It's very much an extension of the kind of documentary videos that Pope did a long time ago that everyone is familiar with: the Magick of Solomon, Dark Mirror of Magic, and Rites of Magic. These things that he did. It's an extension of and an addition to, and it's an extraordinarily beautiful art piece directed by director Johnny Royal, and it's a love letter to ritual magic and to magical community and the OTA and the magical orders in general, and it explores much of the themes. It also gets into some of the work that we did on the Krata Rapoa, but it also gets into a lot of Poke's work and the seasonal rites. It's an extraordinarily beautiful piece. I know that the musical score was produced by the same person who did The Witch and I think Hereditary. I would highly advocate people go and check it out on Apple TV or YouTube if they get the chance, and also to check out Poke's bookstore and his long-running podcast, The Hermetic Hour. I think a lot of people are familiar with The Hermetic Hour.
I'd like to plug something else. This is the Seventh Ray Omnibus, and this is available at the bookstore, pokerunyon.com. And what this is a collection of all our old journals
from the 70s,
from the 1970s. And we've got articles in here by Bill Gray, the British magician, and we've got the Parsons papers, Jack Parsons, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword. This is nostalgia stuff, real nostalgia stuff. And show you the cover of the first Seventh Ray. That was the first Seventh Ray in 1972. And this is a real walk down memory lane. And that's available from the bookstore. And of course, the big one, the one we've had it published, this has been out since 1996. But this is
nope. Just trying to get some light on it.
All right.
There we go. Ah, there we go. Nice.
Yeah. The Book of Solomon's Magic, second edition. And the Master Mandala, by the way, that one of your reviewers was
that's actually more towards the appendices.
Yeah.
It's actually towards the
version.
Here it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Oh yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Where is it? Uno momento.
Yeah.
Hang on. Man, what?
Yeah.
All right. I'll find it once.
You find it.
There it is.
Yeah.
There's Master Mandala.
Here we are. Yo, Master Mandala.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. My moderator has just put the website in the comments, and I will put it in the info box as well.
And also
Thank
our podcast, which I think you could get over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Hermetic Hour.
It's the Hermetic Hour.
Yeah.
And we've been doing the Hermetic Hour for the past 12 years. And it's a weekly podcast on Hermetic subjects and or subjects of interest to Hermetics. And that is on Podbean. You could get it, just type in magick.podbean.com magick.com, and that'll get you to the Hermetic Hour.
Magic with a K.
Magic with
Yeah.
a K. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Polk and Max, for being here with me. It was a pleasure to have this interview, and I can tell by the comments that people really enjoyed it.
Thank you very, very much, Dr.
Well,
Puka.
we're honored to be with you, and we wish all your viewers good magic and merry meet and blessed be. Merry meet, merry part, and blessed be.
Sounds good. So thank you again, and now I will wrap up as I normally do. Thank
Yes.
you. So thank you everybody for watching up until this point. And if you did, leave me a book emoji so that I know that you watched until this point and you're very committed to your esoteric learning, and I'm very proud of you. Also, don't forget that this project can only exist thanks to your support. So if you have the means, I would massively appreciate if you consider supporting my work on Patreon, Ko-fi, PayPal. You can check out my services at drangelapuka.com. Check out my online courses as well at drangelapuka.com. And you find all the links in the cards, the bio, the info box, everywhere. So thank you so much for considering, and sign up for my newsletter. That's a free way to stay in contact with me, and you don't have to rely on the capricious social media algorithms. Also, I'm not censored on my newsletter, and you get priority. Well, the priority access is to my patrons, but then after that, when there is like any new thing or a new course, I always advertise to them first. So thank you so much for that. And if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, activate the notification bell so that you will always be notified when I upload a new video or when I'm live, and share my videos around so that the symposium can grow. Thank you all so much for being here, and I hope that you stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now.
Today